reconvene this meeting of the Select Board following our tour of our Public Works facility. As always, our first order of business is approving the minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes from September 19th, 2023?
So I'd move the approval of the minutes of September 19th so with any necessary corrections.
Second? Anybody? Second. Okay. Any changes of note on page 1? Page 2? And page 3? Okay. All those in favor of approving the minutes of September 19th, 2023?
Aye.
Aye. Ayes have it. Next, we will hear public comment. We do have 2 public hearings happening tonight, but if anybody has any thing they would like to address the select board about at this point, now would be your time. Okay, anybody online?
Just staff.
All right. So we are going to move on to interviews and appointments. We have 2 candidates for the one seat on the Old Brick Church trustees. If both of you are Lauren and Michael, you're both here. If you want to come to the center table, and we'll do your interviews together. Because there's 2 of you, procedurally, we'll do the interview now, and then we will make the appointment at the end of our meeting. So you're free to stay after the interview portion, or you can go. We will ask you a few questions, and we will then give you both a chance to respond. First, we'll just have you introduce yourselves and a little bit about why you would like to be on the Old Brick Church trustees. So Lauren, we'll have you go first.
I'm Lauren Coomjian. I married David Yandel, so I'm connected to the town now. I've been here since 1994. That family has been here since the 1940s. We live on Oak Hill Road. I have 3 kids who went through the school system. And in my professional life, I've been a public health professional and taught at CCB until COVID days. I'm retired, so I have time. My interest in the Brick Church in particular is that there's a family history and the sense that it's an important historic building, and it's so great that Williston has a historic district, and the Brick Church is, kind of a center point of that. Has not been changed really since it was constructed in the 1800s. And its significance even to Vermont as a whole, because the Chittenden family had front pews and attended the church when it was the congregational church. So, and I have an interest in Americana and preservation. So that's where I stand. I was happy to see that there was an opening, although I wondered why I need to have 5 trustees. I don't know where that's written, but I'm going to be happy to be one. I may be honored to be one actually, and sit in the shoes there, or at this table where some other really great Williston people have sat.
Yeah. Michael?
Great. I'm Michael Zorczak. I moved here on Sunday. Where I run the regulatory legal affairs for the electric department. We have a 1822 mill building that we're looking to restore. And I think to make things simple for everyone, what I would love to do is come back on the 17th for the Regional Planning Commission alternate position, because that sort of aligns more with my professional background. There's no conflict of interest between Lamoille County and Chittenden County, and I'm clearly underqualified to my new neighbor. And I think it would just be good municipal sportsmanship, right? We can fill 2 positions, let the other folks have at it, and I know, I mean, you guys have long nights like I do, so I appreciate quick meetings. So, and I can bore you on the 17th with my life. If you be interested.
And you will have been here for 2 full weeks at that point, so that's practically
No
a
more
neighbor.
clouds. And I'll make up some family members of my. Yeah, shit, I'll put that name around and I'll figure it out. But no, I think it's a good win for everybody, and
Okay.
that's my preference.
So would you like to officially kind of remove yourself from consideration then for this particular board position or board of
Yeah,
trustees
I think
position?
that's good.
Okay. All right, so then we're still gonna ask you some questions, Lauren, but if you want to take a seat, Michael, you can, or you can.
Are there some openings on the historic architecture and whatever?
I think the only other opening we have right now is for health officer, which if you would love to be a health officer,
Right past
that would also be. Okay, all right,
Thank you.
No, I mean, like I said, my planning
okay.
experience.
All right, well, we'll see you on the 17th then.
Thank you.
So questions from the board for Lauren?
Well, you may have seen in the Observer that there's some controversy about the brick church and putting cell antennas in the steeple, and the proposals are going forth. We're currently, staff is looking to get more information from both the proposal maker and from other things that have been brought up to us. Do you have any opinion on what's going forward on that?
I too would like to see more of what the proposal is. I know that they approached Rick 5 years ago or something, and it didn't move anywhere. I do think it would be, it's a funny situation because it is such a historic building, but I understand the height of it. It's what attracts them because they can get their, whatever they need to up there. But they didn't talk about this structure that has to go in the back.
Yes.
In the last proposal, and that's, I think, concerning too.
Me too.
Especially the noise and I mean, there are people who probably don't even want to live near that. It's like living near, to me, it's like living near those transducer things. I wouldn't want to be there. So, yeah, I guess I would be open to, because I know there are people who complain about their self-service. But it would be too bad to sacrifice something as old and historic to the state as the brick church just for that. There should be another way to get better service than to pick the highest point in the historic village. So I guess, like I said, I go both ways.
So, thank you.
I mean, we actually haven't heard from the trustees who were open to exploring it. And so I hope that if we point you to this, that you'll be open to at least hearing what their reasoning is. I assume it has to do with, there's things that building needs, and this is a way to fund it. So there are pros and cons, I'm sure, but I don't, like I said, we haven't actually heard from them yet directly on the whole proposal, but I hope if we point you that you'd be open to listening at least.
Yes, yeah, I'm curious as to what information they had and come to the point where they said, I read back and they sort of said, okay, but it wasn't like a strong okay, it was more like they had all these conditions that related to the fact that they were basing their information on an old proposal.
Yeah.
Something new now needs to be put together, so, and more eyes need to see it, I think. I mean, that structure is listed on many different sites. It does belong to the town, but it has significance beyond the town. And I think that other people at UVM and other places that deal with historic preservation would be interested to know that there is this significant proposal for Verizon.
Any other questions?
I am a lister. I don't think there's any conflict. I mean, I'm on the board of listers.
Yeah.
but-
You don't have to list that building.
I don't think there's any conflict. And I guess that's the only other question, the Jeff Ferris question. If there was a conflict of interest, how would you handle it? And yeah, so how would you handle it if there was, for some reason, a conflict of interest if you were appointed to the Old Brick Church Board of Trustees? How would you handle that?
With what?
With a conflict of interest, how would you, if a conflict arose, how would you recognize a conflict of interest, I guess, is how he phrases it. I can't imagine there would be many for this position, but yeah,
I don't even know if I can respond to the question.
just for cues.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's okay. So unless there's any other further questions, because we just have one candidate now, if anyone would like to make a motion.
I had a typo in the motion as well. It should be June 30th, not June 20th of the year. Just to note that.
Well, I'd move to appoint Lauren Kunzian to the Old Brick Church Trustees for an unexpired 5-year term through June 30th, 2028.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, the ayes have
But
it.
I understand the first meeting is like November, so that's what I should do, is show up for the first.
Yeah, we'll have staff be in touch with you. Typically, Bruce Hoare, the Public Works Director, will organize the
Yeah.
meeting with John Butterfield, the chair.
Okay, I did speak with Bruce.
Oh, good.
Too, so.
Yeah, we'll certainly be in touch for the next meeting.
Thank you so much, Lauren, for all your service, for the listers, for this. Thank you. So we do have a public hearing scheduled for 7:15. We should probably wait until 7:15 to start that, I imagine. Yeah? Is it okay if we start a couple minutes early? I don't know.
Usually if you just ask for the presentation that Matt will do,
Okay.
then it'll be about 7:15 by the time we get there.
Excellent. Okay, so let's start then. So, so we have a public hearing on, the first one will be on the regulating plan amendment for Trader Lane. The Williston Selectboard is scheduled to hold a public hearing to receive comment on proposed changes to the existing unified development bylaw to amend the regulating plan map and street specifications map contained in Appendix F, form-based code, as well as the town-wide official map pursuant to 24 VSA 442 and the Williston Unified Development Bylaw. So Matt, if you would be willing to come up and provide a brief overview of the bylaw amendments, that would be great. Thank you.
Thanks for having me. I'm shocked you think I can fill 2 minutes. This is a relatively simple amendment to the Unified Development Bylaws. It is an amendment to the maps that were listed in the hearing warning only. There is no text change or change to the development standards of the Unified Development Bylaw that's part of this change. So I want to be clear about that, that the pictures in the memorandum and the hearing notice that you've looked at are all that's changing. The reason for this change is that when the form-based code was established for Taft Corners, it came along with a map of existing and proposed streets and some existing and proposed public and private green spaces. This street, Trader Lane, extends from where it ends today at the Hannaford parking lot, and a new street would extend from there all the way to just west of the Texas Roadhouse at Route 2, crossing Williston Road and intersecting with Helena Drive on the other side. This is a street that the town has had in various town plans going back over 20 years. It has wanted to construct And when the form-based code was developed, we mapped this street in a sort of a speculative way as best we could with the information we had, and also capturing the town's aspiration that the street become a focal point within Taft Corners that could provide an important public resource in the form of a green. The existing mapping of that street, based on that vision, included that green with a one-way circulation around it. You see that in the image on the left of your memo. Having that sort of street proved untenable for the town, and a simpler layout was proposed and discussed among staff and the property owner. That's the image you see on the right, labeled proposed. It shifts the green a little bit to the north. It renders Trader Lane a straighter street without the one-way sections circulating around the green. And as you can see in the staff memo following from your memo, this still complies with the standards for new streets that the form-based code requires. So if we were a private developer asking to change the map to do this, I would take it through the same analysis and I would arrive at the same conclusion that I am on behalf of the town, which is this reconfiguration can be made without going outside of the boundaries we've established for ourselves in the code. And those are mostly about keeping streets connected and maintaining a relatively small 350 to 400 foot block size, which is understood as a manageable size for a village center block that is easy for people to walk through and navigate and get around in. In transmitting this proposed change to the select board, the Planning Commission did make one additional recommendation beyond the physical shifting of the green and change in the and the one on the left in your memo, which shows sidewalks, trees, parking lanes, and driving lanes, to the one on the right, which shows sidewalks, trees, a grade-separated bicycle lane on each side of the road, as well as parking lanes and driving lanes. The overall right-of-way here is a little bit wider. We go from a 64 to a 78 potentially foot right-of-way, so the faces of the buildings, if they're developed to standard, are a little further apart. But the Planning Commission felt that with the straightening of the road and the removal of some of the traffic calming elements of the one-way circulation around the green, it was important to go with a street spec that would provide cyclists with their own space rather than having them mingle with traffic. So that's the proposal. It's exactly the same as what we went over when we did the informational meeting on this some time ago. Now you've had a duly warned hearing. The step would be to take testimony and questions tonight, possibly close the hearing if the board feels they've had enough information. And then the way state law works is if you would like to make a decision to adopt this change, you do it after the hearing. Happy to stay up and answer any questions.
Any questions from the board?
So just to be really clear and for the record, the change that we're approving affects Trader Lane, the green on Trader Lane. Does it affect the cross street coming into it at all?
It doesn't affect their locations, although when we shift things, we have to extend some things straight out just to make sure the streets still touch.
Right.
So Wright Avenue, the street that accesses CVS, gets a little shorter because we've pushed the Trader Lane green up into it.
Right.
And then there are two potential side streets. This would be alongside where Bed Bath and Beyond is. I think we've called it Green Street.
To the north of Bed
Just to the north of Bed Bath and Beyond. So that street and the other street unnamed to the north of it, we've just had to extend to make sure they lead to Trader Lane. And we've kept the development standards. So those orange, red, yellow colors that have meaning in terms of what kind of building you can build, we've kept those basically the same.
Just trying to make sure I really understand the scope of what we're approving.
By being two-way traffic off of Bishop Avenue, that would make it easier for trucks, wouldn't it?
On Bishop Avenue, yes. So Bishop Avenue would now intersect, people could make a left or a right from Bishop Avenue, where before they probably would have only been able to make a right because they'd be lining into that one-way street. Keep in mind, Bishop is right in, right out where it goes to Route 2A per the requirements of V-Trans. So there's not a lot of truck traffic that comes in that way, probably except maybe maybe somebody who's trying to get into Panera, although I think most of it's happening from either Marshall or Merchants Row, because those are easier movements. Bishop is pretty tight where it comes out to 2A. And we're not changing anything about that.
What I liked about the original was the traffic calming by the one way around the little park. But your studies show that that's not going to be an issue.
No, we don't think so. The lane widths are the same, so the actual space a driver has to be in is about the same. The other thing that I was looking at today is, we have some other detail that goes into these streets that we'll be looking at as we work on design. In the public works standard specifications that were adopted to reflect these new street standards, there's a couple of detail sheets showing how the town can treat things like crosswalks and intersections. And this is where you can come out with the curbing and essentially narrow the road at the intersection to slow everybody down when they're coming into the intersection. And we do have the ability in our public works spec to do that. So when we look at these various streets that Trader Lane is going to interact with, there's more that can happen there than just the picture of the streets you see on the memo tonight.
Thank you. I like the idea of the bike lanes. That's good.
Yeah, and I should point out in the spec, those bike lanes are after the curb. So you have the 2 driving lanes and the parking lanes, and then you have a 6-inch curb, and the bike lane sits up on that. So there's actually some physical separation between the cyclist and any cars. It's hard for a car to pull into that. They'd have to jump the curb to do that.
If there's no other questions for Matt from the board, we will open it up to public comments. So if anybody in the room has any public comments regarding the regulating plan amendment for Trader Lane, you can step up to the microphone, state your name, and provide your comment. Is there anybody online who
No
would
one on
like
Zoom
to
except
provide comment? Okay. Well, then if there's anything else from the board, be open to that. Otherwise, we can have a motion to close this public hearing.
I move to close the public hearing on the proposed amendments to the form-based code regulating plan map, as well as the corresponding street specification map and the townwide official map to reconfigure Trader Lane and relocate the Trader Lane public green. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so the public hearing for the regulating plan amendment for Trader Lane has been closed, and now would be open to discussion or a motion to adopt the amendments.
So I'll move to adopt the amendments to the form-based code regulating plan map, as well as the corresponding street specification map and townwide official map to reconfigure Trader Lane and relocate the Trader Lane public green.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, the motion has passed.
Thank you very much.
Rock, Matt. Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Okay. So we do have a second public hearing scheduled for 7:30. I don't know if you want to, I know we're expecting a few more people to speak on that. If you want to.
Could we skip to 10 or something?
Yeah, I was going to say if we wanted to just take a few minutes and, yeah.
Do you want a personnel policy?
Yeah,
amendment?
that'd
Sure.
be great.
So I distributed to the board yesterday just a minor personnel policy amendment, some cleanup language here. It's essentially adding language to include public safety support staff to positions where a paid lunch break may occur. This is due to the fact that these and other employees must be available during their break for work as needed. Currently have dispatch and library employees in those categories. Cleaning this up a little bit with the reality we face with someone in those departments at times. There might be everyone else is out, and there might be one person in the building, and they need to have someone available. So bringing this to the board as some potential cleanup here for this part of the personnel policy.
So not to throw a wrench in this, but one question would be, we've talked about doing, possibly regional dispatch or adding fire dispatch at some point into kind of the fold. So So would it behoove us to remove specifically where it says police and just have it say dispatch?
Yeah, yeah, that's a good catch. Just pulling up the sheet here. Yeah, I don't see any issue with that. That's what the board would like to do.
Good catch, Greta.
But that's my only comment on that. Anybody else?
I mean, the lawyers have looked at it, it must be fine, but it says they have a duty, they don't have a duty-free lunch. They may have to step away from their lunch. And yet, later on it says, and yet they're entitled to a break. So that,
Yeah, that was advised when I looked at it with our attorney, just to reiterate that's from the last sentence there was from state statute, just
Yeah.
to reiterate that. We have to certainly allow a reasonable break time for any staff member
it
here.
doesn't necessarily have to be their lunch hour or something like
Right,
that.
right. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Any other comments or questions about the personnel policy amendment? Okay. And then if there's anybody who would like to make a motion.
I move to adopt the amendments to the town personnel policy as presented and amended.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Motion is passed. So we are still a little early.
More questions?
Could you managers report?
Yeah, why don't we move on to the manager's report?
Sure. So I'll just highlight 3 minutes. I'll try to take the 3 minutes here. So, a couple items in my written report this evening. We're looking to schedule the select board retreat coming up. One item I know from the board, we'll discuss the overview for what the evening will look like probably at the next meeting, but one thing is goal setting in policy agenda here. And one thing the town's done in the past is bring in a facilitator to kind of lead that discussion so all board members can participate. I have one who's done this in the past for the town who's available. Let's see, the week of November 13th, with Monday the 13th, maybe a preferred day that week if available. So I want to see if the board might be open to looking at that date, or we can certainly look at other dates too to try to get something on the calendar here.
For those of you who haven't been to a retreat before, it's like 6 to 9 usually. It's in like evening. It's not, or an all day. Yeah.
Right, yeah. Usually in this room, or unless the board wanted to go somewhere else in town, we could certainly make that happen too. And if we wanted food involved or something like that.
Go to the Isham Farm. I hear it's a fun place.
And I'm sorry, what was the date again?
Monday, the 13th of November.
That works from
I've heard
my
that's
schedule.
Should work for me.
That work for you, Terry? The 13th?
It's fine.
Okay.
I will just double check with Ted to make sure that date does work for him. I got to ask him today when I touch base with him.
All right.
So the town, I left for the board, just a reminder, the town plan 2050 outreach is starting up. So there's a number of great events the planning department is organizing. I think I heard today they're looking for a couple of folks to help with facilitating some discussions there. If there's anyone on the select board that might be interested in that, I can share more details with that as well. But that'll be ongoing around town the next couple of months. I mentioned at the Public Works Garage when we were on the tour earlier, a reminder that the voters approved spending $125,000 of unspent bond proceeds the last town meeting day to purchase the solar panels on the roof of that facility. We have a 7-year option that comes into effect on October 24th. So I've been working with the town's attorney and the attorney for iSun that will purchase them from, and we'll be in position to get to close on that transaction here in a couple of weeks. We're working to procure ongoing maintenance of the panels as well. Melinda Scott's working to get a contractor on board for that. So we'll get that aligned when we take ownership of these solar panels to make sure we have someone who can maintain them should we have an issue with them. That will be coming up. And our EV chargers in the Village Community Park, I think work's getting underway this week to install 2 charging stations in the parking lot right near the entrance to the park. So that's an ARPA project that was funded a couple of years ago by the Select Board. So And as a reminder, the special select board meeting is coming up on Monday, October 30th at the Williston Central School Auditorium for a report on the community center assessment and library scoping committee's reports that they'll be wrapping up this month. They'll be at 7 o'clock, and we'll also have it recorded by Town Meeting TV as well. And as a reminder, we'll start the next meeting early again for a tour of the fire station. Probably, I'm thinking maybe 5:45 might make sense for that one. It's very much time tonight. So that's all I have for my report this evening.
All right. Okay, well, thank you. So now we are officially at 7:30, so we can start the public hearing. The Williston Selectboard will hold a public hearing to receive suggestions of how the town should spend its remaining $1.8 million in American Rescue Plan Act ARPA funds. These funds were distributed in 2021 and 2022 to aid in recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic to local governments. The town received just over $3 million in total funding, and its uses to date have included projects identified in the town's capital plan, revenue allocations to the town's general fund and the operating budget, and launching a feasibility study to assess future spaces for the library and community recreation center. So, as with our other public hearing, although I suspect there's a few more people to speak to this one, if those of you in the room or online who are going to speak and share some ideas, if you can come up to the microphone or sit at the desk, introduce yourselves and any organizations you may be representing, and give us a brief overview of your suggestions and recommendations.
And for the board process-wise, I'll be compiling a report for you at your next meeting that takes these public comments, other outreach that's been gathered, some staff projects that we've identified, to put it together for the board to start your discussion and kind of preview. It might be a topic for the retreat as well, to think about how to work through that policy decision process. And I can talk more about that next meeting as well.
Okay. Thank you. Okay.
Hi, Kevin Batson, on the Energy Committee, me and Kevin are both on the Energy Committee and also Safe Routes to School Committee for the Williston Schools. And I'm here to speak for Safe Routes to Schools and also just cycling in general in Williston. So as far as Safe Routes to School, I've spoken to Eric a couple of times about the committee wants to move ahead with coming with some specific intersections, et cetera, that can be improved with flashing yellow lights and other crosswalk mechanisms. But there's also, we also want to come up with other means of getting students and people able to get around the town without using cars, especially in schools. And so we will come forward with some specific recommendations, but I think I would really request that some money be put aside and thinking about this, how this is very important. You look out, I mean, 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, kids are moving all over the town in different fashions, bicycles, walking, scooters, and everything. The infrastructure that we have now is not really meeting that need. So, some people, children crossing Mountain View Road, Stage Road, and really scared, maybe, or it's only triggered when someone's there. Yellow flashing in the town, maybe. In general, the town work standards are, what's been done for the last, eon is being continued being done, and concrete is being put on sidewalks, which is, sorry for saying those, it's my pet peeve for a long time. Which is twice as expensive, according to the Department of Vermont Transit, V-Trans. They have a spreadsheet there that says putting in asphalt is half the cost across the board, whether it's dedicated side path for recreation path, whether it's a sidewalk or whatever, they have the chart, I can copy there. And it also, because if you look at the way people are moving now, that would help with scooters, et cetera. And kids, I know when kids ride on the sidewalk, which is legal in town, it's a lot, rolls better, you don't bumpy, bump. And if you go to towns, a lot of towns in Massachusetts, Lexington and Wellfleet, healthy, wealthy towns, they have the stone on the edge and asphalt. So if you, any cyclist, if he needs to get out of the way of the traffic, pull over onto the sidewalk as need be. So I just think that, and in general, if you compare our town to, say, neighboring Heinsberg, South Burlington, our roads are really tight for cyclists. There's the white fog line, which is kind of separate fog line, but it's also there, kind of separates, it gives cyclists a place to move. That is lacking. So if you come up Pond Road, what we call CVU Hill, which is a straight shot basically onto Oak Hill and then into town, which if it were safe, kids with high schoolers with electric cycles could, get there if need be on an electric cycle. Every cyclist I know avoids Oak Hill Road and always has. I know someone died there in the 90s, a cyclist. And it was just repaved, and I was so sad to see that it's no safer than before. The state is, when they redo a road, they're putting in 10% more road to make room for cycle, alternate transportation. And Williston's not. And so the example of Pond Road, the reason why I pick on that is, if you come up from CVU, it's through, in the Heinsberg part of the road, there's about a foot margin for bikes on the inside of the fog line. And you kind of feel a little bit safe. And then as soon as you get to the Williston sign, it's gone. It's not only dangerous for cyclists, but it's also dangerous for cars. Last time I rode it, which was about a week and a half ago, group, a truck trying to be polite went around us, but the other car coming the other direction didn't slow down in time and had forced off the road, actually, onto a dirt shoulder, very sketchy. And so I just think going forward, on probably our 2050 plan, they're making it alternative transportation. We should think about looking at the public works standards and making them more, because the reason why I joined the planning commission 20 years ago was to try to get better cycling and pedestrian, and it really has not much has changed. The state's done improvements. When I joined, we had the backtrack on 2A, so that was already there. There's not much else that's been on. So, any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Next.
Hi, all. My name is Ginger Morton, and I'm the president of the Williston Community Food Shelf. The food shelf was formed in 2008 by a group of concerned citizens. We've been operating for 15 years, and through the end of August, we have served 39,139 families, which translates into 118,241 individuals. The Food Shelf is a 100% volunteer organization, and we have absolutely no guaranteed source of funding. We fulfill our mission of feeding our hungry neighbors exclusively through the generosity of our community and their donations of time, food, and money. We've never been a part of the town budget, although the Social Organization Committee has given us a $2,000 grant for the past few years. The addition of affordable housing and transitional housing in Williston has contributed significantly to the dramatic increase in food shelf clients that we are seeing. In August of '22, which was a year ago, we were serving about 175 families a month. This year, in August, we are serving 343 families a month, which is almost double. The town budgets for increased demand for police, fire, and snow plowing services. The school district budgets for expenses related to increasing the number of kids in the schools. No one, however, budgets for or probably even considers the impact that these developments have on the food shelf. Right now, our rent and utilities cost about $3,700 a month, and our food budget is running about $9,000 a month. With the other costs that we incur, we're presently spending between $6,000 and $8,000 more per month than we're taking in to feed our hungry neighbors. Our reserves are quickly diminishing, and the demand for our service is dramatically increasing. So I'm here tonight to ask you to consider giving a minimum of $100,000 of the ARPA funds to the food shelf. That would give us a cushion that we need to assure we can fund our operations through the next year. In addition, I would respectfully request that we could begin discussing how the food shelf could become a line item in the town budget, so we might be able to receive some money regularly. Are there any questions I could answer?
All very good data that you gave us, Ginger. Thank you.
I have a handout too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ginger, since you're here, plugs for what you all are most in need of right now at the food shelf?
Soup, peanut butter, juice. I don't even know. So much. Pasta sauce, cans of things.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you, Ginger.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kim Fitzgerald. I'm the CEO for Cathedral Square. Thank you so much for having my comments tonight. Cathedral Square is a nonprofit organization. It's been in existence for 46 years. We have 28 communities in Chittenden, Franklin, and Grand Isle County, with 2 that we're associated with here in Williston. We have 2 of those are licensed assisted living communities, and one of those is our memory care at Allenbrook here on Allenbrook in Williston. And I'd like to start with some great news. When I reached out to Eric a year and a half ago, we were starting a capital campaign to pay off the debt at our community. And we have raised $1 million and we have paid off that debt. So that's the good news. Unfortunately, we still have significant needs. That's why I'm here, obviously, tonight. We continue to raise funds towards our therapeutic gardens because everybody who lives there has a form of dementia. And so we need to be very careful about what the plantings are outside for them. And we're continuing to really struggle with the agency staffing costs. Prior to the pandemic, the agency costs are if our staff can't come in, we have to hire an agency to come in to fill the shifts. We have to have 24/7 coverage. And prior to the pandemic, we we were paying about $20,000 a year, maybe at most, in agency costs. And now this year we budgeted $100,000, and our actual costs are coming in at $400,000. So due to those exorbitant costs, we are having to defer some maintenance items, and we do have some heating and ventilation concerns at the property that we are worried about the safety and the comfort for both our residents and for our staff. So I'm here tonight to ask, to actually change my original request. It can be lowered, but to ask for $200,000 to go towards the heating and ventilation concerns that we have at the property. For those who might not know, Memory Care at Allenbrook is the only affordable dementia care community, assisted living community in the state of Vermont. And the reason I say that is because we take Section 8 subsidy for the rent, and we take Medicaid for the services. If you are living in this area and you're paying privately for memory care services, you're typically paying anywhere from $12,000 to $15,000 a month. And if you can afford that, which of course many people cannot, once you've depleted your assets and you've paid that out, you're asked to leave. So memory care at Allenbrook becomes the only option for many, many people. We have taken people who were living at the hospital, who had no place to go. We've taken people whose family were worried they were going to become homeless because they're going to have to stay home to care for their loved ones. So it's just a really a gem of a community, a property, a community, and it's very magical, but we have to support it or it's not going to be able to stay in existence, and it's critically needed. So any questions for me? And I'm happy to, once we get we're looking at quotes right now. I'm happy to forward those along as soon as we get them. Thank you. Any questions?
Well, I didn't know that there was a senior center for memory care in Williston.
Yes, it's called Memory Care at Allenbrook, and it's a community, so it's where people live with dementia, and it's 24/7 staffing, so it's a licensed assisted living community. And there's 14, we call them homes, but they're apartments, 14 homes there, and we have a wait list of over 250 people waiting to get in.
250 people for 14?
Yep. If I didn't have as much staffing woes, I would be opening a lot more because there's just such a critical need. But unfortunately, again, with the pandemic, we have a couple hurdles for us for staffing. One is, with the pandemic, a lot of people have chosen not to get into long-term care. They've just decided to either get out of it or not pursue that as a career. We also we don't have a bus line, so that is really hard for us as well to get staffing because we're hoping the microtransit might help us, but that's another concern. And then the third concern is you have to be a pretty special person to want to work with somebody with dementia all day long. It takes special people, and we're very blessed to have a phenomenal staff, but it's hard to find really good qualified people.
I would suspect people go from the Allenbrook memory care directly to respite afterwards.
Actually, that's a great question. In the time we have been in existence, which now we're on year 7, there have only been 2 people who've gone to respite. Everybody else has died right with us, right at Memory Care at Allenbrook. Most of the people living there are nursing home level of care, and we keep them until the end of their life, so they don't have to move.
Okay, so it's
They stay right there towards the end.
They were seeing more and more people in need of this.
Absolutely. The rates of Alzheimer's in the state of Vermont are just skyrocketing as well. Yep. And like I said, we've had people who were at the hospital, and one person had been living at the hospital for over 6 months, another person had been over for 8 months. It would be awful for any of us to have to live at the hospital, but if somebody with dementia, it's just exponentially worse with all the people coming and going and the lights and the beeping noises and everything. So when they arrived with us, they had a lot of behaviors, hitting, fighting, but literally within a month and a half to 2 months, their behaviors all turned around, and they were back to themselves. Their loved ones said they really have their loved one back again, and they were able to die with dignity at Memory Care.
Well, thank you for doing that.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Kim. Okay. Anybody else want to speak? Come up. Oh, sorry. Have you introduce yourself and a little bit about your request?
Hi, Dan Clark. I'm a resident. And First, before I say anything else, I wanted to compliment the select board and the staff for the well-organized budget package and the transparency that's exhibited by making that available to all of us citizens. So wanted to say thank you for that. So the remaining ARPA funds are a one-time influx of cash to the town. So I would really urge us to use it for one-time expenses rather than taking on a new obligation that will continue on year after year. Specifically, my recommendation would be that we use it to retire some of the debt that we have as a town. Eric, that was one thing I couldn't tell from the package. Do you know offhand what's the total value of our outstanding bond obligations?
Our finance director right behind you might have a quicker on top of her head.
I know our debt service is about $1 million a year, including principal and interest, but I wasn't able to tell how much debt we have as a town. Okay. So that would be, you know, I don't know if some of the bonds can be called early, but that somehow the remaining ARPA funds be earmarked to pay down the debt that we have taken on. I know we're not taking on any in this fiscal year, but there are plans for us to borrow again in the future years. And so to me, that seems like it would be an excellent use of these funds would be to pay some of our debt down and avoid the need to take on new debt. And that's going to reduce, of course, our ongoing obligation to pay interest. And that's going to make it a little bit easier for some of the ongoing expenses that we have as a town. So something else I just want to make sure I understood correctly. Our tax rate right now is 33.91, right? Does that sound right?
I believe so, yeah, right around.
So that's an increase of 75% since 2010. So our rate on property tax has really, you know, gone up dramatically in just 25% in the last 2 years. So I think it's important, and I asked the council or select board, sorry, to keep that in mind that we can't take on, there are, you know, there's infinite needs, right? There really are, but we can't take them all on. So even though our taxable grand list, you know, has increased pretty well too, which is compliments to the town and, you know, its development of commercial and residential property, our property tax rate has really gone up dramatically. So we won't be able to continue, you know, we don't really want to continue to take on new obligations. So that's my suggestion, is use the ARPA funds, pay down some of the debt that we have as a town. That's going to free up some interest payments that, you know, we can use for other things. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for the 25% the last 2 years, putting it into perspective.
Yeah.
Answer your question, the general fund has 6.6 million in debt. The enterprise fund has 1.8 million directly, but I have to grab balance. We also have debt, we share debt with the water district and with the city.
So I know the capital package is already like 180 pages, but maybe 181, just a suggestion for next fiscal year to lay out what obligations we have. Thank you.
I'm not the expert, just so you know, I want you to know, we heard you. I think there's technical reasons why you can't pay municipal debt early, but.
Right, so
but
I don't know if the bond can be retired, but we
Right.
certainly could.
But we have lots of other debt, so yeah, maybe there's something there. So thanks. I just didn't want you to leave when we don't, if we can't do it, I want you to know it's because we can't do it, not because we didn't consider it. Thank you.
All right.
My name is Danielle Doucette, and I expect that you probably think I'm going to here to tell you to put on solar panels and electric vehicle chargers everywhere, and you're doing that already. So I think that's great. I hope other people are going to say that. I just was really moved by Ginger's numbers about the people that are going to the food shelf in the last year or so. Really, I was surprised by that, and I really want to support their benefiting from some ARPA funding. And then I was also thinking that I missed the Old Brick Church music series, or just a way that brings the community together in town. I think that would be great to see ways to get together. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for
Thank you,
speaking.
Danielle. Brian, are you waiting, or are you Kevin, or?
Kevin Thorley, Vice Chair of the Energy Committee, also on the Safe Routes to School group, for lack of a better word, and Williston resident. I just want to echo what my counterpart, Kevin, from the Energy Committee said, and put it in the perspective of a parent who has right now a freshman at CVU and a 7th grader in WCS. And for the past 6 or 7 years, living in Southridge, we really appreciate that our kids can get to school on their own. They have a level of independence that allows them to leave in the morning together. Well, used to be together before Jack went to CVU, with friends, etc. And that's not something that I think enough kids in the town have, right? And I think that's evidenced by anyone that drives Williston Road in the morning and sees the backup in front of the school and how many cars are waiting to get in. There's a very, I think, relatively small amount of money that's been asked in the from the Energy Committee from Safe Routes to School, and I think Sustainable Williston also spoke out in favor of it. It's a small amount of money to increase the safety of the kids and make it easier for them to get to school and just have a level of independence that I think is just healthy for them. There's been a number of times I've seen kids without some of these things, without crosswalks, etc., going to school, coming home. I've seen it when I go with my daughter to WCS in the morning. We could really benefit from some traffic calming, some lights, and some better signage to get kids safely to and from school. Thank you.
Thank you, too.
My name is Brian Forrest. I'm both a resident and a former energy coordinator. I echo the previous speaker about how this is special money, kind of one-time money, but I differ in his assessment of what we should do with it. I don't think it should be used for housekeeping, paying down our debts, since Williston is the second has the second lowest tax rate in Chittenden County, so we're certainly not hurting by raising our taxes to want to pay down something to raise our taxes to do that. What I am concerned about is we have an environmental crisis. We just had a dash of it this summer when some towns were flooded, Montpelier, Barry. And that's just the calling card for the environment. It's going to get worse, and I don't think that this town has really looked up and assessed its role. Williston contributes to this crisis, has the means, the resources to deal with it, to make itself carbon neutral. I think it should start getting on the path. I think we should take this money and build a solar farm and replace some of the fossil fuels that are causing the damage that we've experienced with a solar farm, a community-owned solar farm. We should take this money and put it towards electrifying our school district, getting off fossil fuels. We need to do something. We can't wait until the town gets wiped away before we say, oh, we should have done something. This is a crisis that's coming. It's here now, but Vermont is kind of in a sweet spot, apparently. But we have experienced results of our lack of dealing with climate change. And we're going to get more. So I think that we should take this money and spend it wisely and start dealing with our children's future and our grandchildren's future. They're not going to have one unless we start dealing with it. And this isn't the time to deal with it. And when is the time to deal with it? Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
So, anybody online that would like to speak?
There's one person watching. Anyone online that's viewing, if you'd like to speak, please raise your hand or just let me know in the chat. Not seeing anyone. I'll watch another moment or two.
I think everybody's spoken. If you want to come, you can come back up. Yep.
Just, Erin, you said you're going to give a synopsis at the next meeting of all the feedback that you've received?
Yep, I'm compiling a report right now for the select board. So everything shared this evening and sent to me via email and some chats I held last month, along with all the feedback from the policy advisory committees that the town has and any other groups that want to submit comments. Will all go in that report. The select board will have a lot of thinking and decision making to do off of that report and other ideas the board members have. The board will be working through that process in the months to come, I anticipate.
All right.
All right. Unless there's anybody else in the room, I thank you all very much for coming and for presenting. This has been really helpful and informative, and I'm so glad that so many people are engaged and invested in the future of our community and supporting everybody and what we can do with this money. So thank you. And if there's a motion to close that public hearing, you can.
I'll move to close the public hearing on the ARPA funding.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So we've been.
Audience I've ever been.
So we've been through the manager's report, so I think we can move on to other business.
Yep. One item under other business. This is I included in your packet an email I received last month. It's the airport is standing up a noise exposure map study committee, technical advisory committee, and they'd like representatives from the local jurisdictions. They'll hold a series of meetings to provide information and receive inputs from towns as the airport reviews and discuss the existing and future flight operations, noise exposure at the airport. So they've reached out for someone from the town to serve in this group, and my understanding is they're going to kind of be a liaison between the conversations there and the town to make sure the town's voice is heard at the table. Assistant to the manager Aaron Dickinson would be willing to serve in that role. It's not. I thought it'd be prudent for the board to make an appointment for that. So if the board's interested in appointing Aaron, or you'd like to consider any other folks, just let me know.
There. So does anybody have any strong feelings about other people who might want to fill the role, or would like to make a motion to appoint Aaron to that role?
Thank you, Aaron.
Yeah, let's
Yeah.
that Michael.
So if anybody does want to make a motion to appoint her.
I would move to appoint Aaron Dickinson to be a representative to the Burlington International Airport Noise Exposure Map Update Technical Advisory Committee.
This is the longest ever.
Is there an acronym for that?
I'll second it.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Okay, ayes have it. Any final thoughts on agenda items from this meeting before we enter into an executive session?
I almost jumped in to ask this question while they were there, but I wasn't quite clear on the Safe Routes to School Energy Committee if they'd submitted anything, because it would really help me in my decision making if I had more than sort of we'd like some money for future improvements, and if they get that feedback, if they haven't already submitted it.
Yeah, I think I've been copied on a few emails. I know they anticipate sending something formal to me to include in the report.
Right. I mean, I don't think I have to have like, this is exactly where the crosswalk's going to go and this is what it's going to look like, but, free crosswalks and, it's something, the way my brain works, it would be, I prioritize a higher felt self plan. Just feedback for them if you hear from them.
Yep.
And anything else you're getting when you're putting it together, if it's a little vague, it would be good to solidify it for me.
Okay, that sounds good.
Excellent.
I think you've been keeping a file of all of the things that have been asked for from various organizations and people. So we should have a pretty good file on all of that.
Okay, unless there's any other business to discuss. I typically make the motion to enter executive session. I can't tonight, so somebody else gets that lucky job.
Gosh, find it.
Well, I haven't had a chance to do this yet, so move to find that premature public knowledge regarding the labor relations agreement with employees would clearly place the town at a substantial disadvantage. And further move that we enter into executive session to discuss a labor relations agreement with employees under Title I, Sections 313A1B of Vermont statutes, and a real estate purchase under Title I, Sections 313A2, and invite town manager Eric Wells and finance director Shirley Goodell Lackey to join.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? All right, we are now in executive session, and